Representation is a term used in cognitive psychology, neuroscience, and cognitive science to refer to a hypothetical internal cognitive symbol that represents external reality. David Marr defines representation as a formal system for making explicit certain entities or types of information, together with a specification of how the system does this. 1. Representationalism, also known as indirect realism, is the view that representations are the main way we access external reality. Although the sense of time is not associated with a specific sensory system, the work of psychologists and neuroscientists indicates that our brains do have a system governing the perception of time. 1. This is a highly distributed system including the cerebral cortex, cerebellum and basal ganglia as its components. One particular component, the suprachiasmatic nuclei, is responsible for the circadian, or daily rhythm, while other cell clusters appear to be capable of shorter-range, ultradian timekeeping. The sense of time is impaired in some people with neurological diseases such as Parkinson's disease and attention deficit disorder. Human perception of duration is subjective and variable. For example, time may appear to slow or drag as one eagerly anticipates the arrival of a specific event. A school day may seem endless for a student who is waiting for the bell indicating that school is finished for the day. The traditional proverb describing this effect is, "A watched pot never boils." 2. 3. Psychoactive drugs can also impair the perception of time. Stimulants can lead both humans and rats to overestimate time intervals. 4. 5. While depressants can have the opposite effect. 6. The level of activity in the brain of neurotransmitters such as dopamine and adrenaline may be the reason for this. Errors in estimated time intervals might be caused by varying levels of neurotransmitters in the brain. 7. People who have been hypnotized underestimate the duration of their trance. 8. In an experiment comparing a group of subjects aged between 19 and 24 and a group between 60 and 80 asked to estimate when they thought 3 minutes had passed, it was found that the younger group's estimate was on average 3 minutes and 3 seconds, while the older group averaged 3 minutes and 40 seconds. 9. Time seemed to pass slower for the older group. Space-time. The four-dimensional continuum including the three dimensions of space, length, width and height, and one of time. The unity of space and time. The concept was first suggested by H. Minkowski and immediately afterward incorporated by A. Einstein into his special theory of relativity. The former contended that nothing can exist or be conceived of as physical apart from space-time. For every object must have not only length, width and height, but also duration and time. As a result, a complete description and location of an object must be given in terms of four coordinates. Space-time is mathematically grounded in world points, or durationless geometrical points, as the foundation of all four-dimensional measurement, and in world lines, or geometrical lines cutting across the four dimensions. An enduring geometrical point thus becomes a geometrical line, or possibly a curve, in space-time. Space-time is physically conceived of as a general structure determined by the relationship among world events, or four-dimensional events. The universe of four dimensions, the omniverse, as it may be called, includes space with all of its events and objects as well as time with its changes and motions. As such, this four-dimensional universe must be changeless and motionless, insofar as things move and change only when taken in abstraction from time, or rather when space and time are regarded as separate. According to the classical or Newtonian theory, space-time is separable in an absolute way into the two elements, space and time. On the other hand, according to either the special or the general theory of relativity, this separation is not possible in an absolute sense but is relative to a choice of a coordinate system. A somewhat different, metaphysical interpretation of space-time was formed by S. Alexander and C. L. Morgan. According to their doctrine of emergent evolution, space-time is the matrix of the world, out of which have emerged matter, life, mind, and deity. The world as we know it has evolved out of the original space-time. RBW. Traditionally, space and time are thought of as the conditions of the existence of things, operating as all encompassing eternal elements. Kant changes this idea and proposes that space and time cannot exist, because the void and infinity are incapable of being thought. It is only by virtue of the very fact that they cannot be thought, that they exist as the a priori condition of the existence of things. Transcendental Aesthetic 1. Following Alexander Baumgarten, Kant held that there are two kinds of knowledge, sensible, sensual, and logical. Sensible knowledge is based on sensation, logical knowledge is based on reason. Kant's division of transcendental aesthetic and transcendental logic result from these two kinds of knowledge. The transcendental aesthetic is that part of the critique of pure reason that considers the contribution of sensation to cognition. Kant distinguished between the matter and the form of appearances. The matter is, that in the appearance which corresponds to sensation, A20b34. The form is, that which so determines the manifold of appearance that it allows of being ordered in certain relations, A20b34. Kant's revolutionary claim is that the form of appearances, which he later identifies as space and time, is a contribution made by the faculty of sensation to cognition, rather than something that exists independently of the mind. This is the thrust of Kant's doctrine of the transcendental ideality of space and time. Kant's arguments for this conclusion are widely debated among Kant scholars. Some see the argument as based on Kant's conclusions that our representation of space and time is an a priori intuition. From here Kant is thought to argue that our representation of space and time as a priori intuitions entails that space and time are transcendentally ideal. Two others see the argument as based upon a question of whether synthetic a priori judgments are possible. Kant is taken to argue that the only way synthetic a priori judgments, such as those made in geometry, are possible is if space is transcendentally ideal. That space and time are only forms of sensible intuition, and hence are only conditions of the existence of things as phenomena, that, moreover, we have no conceptions of the understanding, and, consequently, no elements for the cognition of things, except in so far as a corresponding intuition can be given to these conceptions, that, accordingly, we can have no cognition of an object, as a thing in itself, but only as an object of sensible intuition, that is, as phenomenon.